Napoli fans around the world, welcome to Napoli Talk. We are minus 1 day until kickoff. Frosinone-Napoli, 6:30 p.m. Italy time on Saturday. That is when the title defense starts again. And I'm excited for another season with you guys. I'm excited to see this new Napoli team with Garcia. Are we going to match the results of last season? Are we going to have a more difficult title battle? I do think Napoli is going to be in that battle. Is it going to be more difficult? Are we going to come out on top? All these questions, obviously, is way too early to answer them. But speaking of questions, Garcia has done a press conference. He's just finished it. So I want to bring what he said to you guys. Now, guys, we've got 45 minutes for this live stream because I'm on my lunch break, right? So it's going to be a hard cutoff when that 45 minutes is up. Let me know, guys, in the chat where you guys are connected from. Let me know what you think about the game. Let me know if the audio sounds good and all that kind of stuff. I'll be keeping a lookout on the chat, and any questions that you guys have, just, you know the drill, put them in, and then we will go through them. Right, Garcia. Let's see what he had to say. All right, so Garcia's press conference. Now, big news that came out is Kvaratskhelia is going to be out for the game against Frosinone. He picked up an injury during preseason. He managed to play 70 minutes in the last friendly that we had last week. The medical scans showed that there's nothing wrong with Kvaratskhelia, but he feels like something is not quite right, and Garcia obviously does not want to risk losing Kvaratskhelia for longer than we have to, especially not when you have to play against the newly promoted side, Frosinone, who I think is maybe the weakest team in the Serie A this year. We should really be able to overcome that obstacle with or without Kvaratskhelia. So that's always, it's not great, but it's nice to see that he's being prudent with his choices. But yeah, that's the biggest surprise. And speaking of formation, he said, look, in Kvaratskelia's spot, yes, we've got Elmas, we've got Raspadori, we have many people that can play there. But don't forget also Lozano, because Lozano actually, he was the one that he thinks had, he says that Lozano on the left wing had his best season, and that was at PSV before joining Napoli. So Garcia, what I like about him is that he's really gotten to know the players, really studied them, not just what they did last season, not just what they've done in Napoli colors, but also what they've done in their past, right? So I think that's really, really interesting that he brings up Lozano on the left. I'm sure maybe that's something Lozano asked him about, if he could play sometimes in that position, if Kvara is not playing, such as tomorrow. We'll see. He did say Raspadori is starting. So whatever happens, Raspadori start. Now, this is something that I think, yes, Garcia probably likes Raspadori, but I think this is something that comes from above. This is something that comes from De Laurentiis. De Laurentiis signed Raspadori last year for a lot of money, 35 million. Actually, we got him on loan last year. Then we re-signed him officially this year. Not only did we sign him, but we extended his contract, which is something that really wasn't a priority to do. But I think it was a signal to the player, listen, you're going to get playing time this year. I'm going to guarantee that you get playing time. So please don't start, asking about guarantees or potentially moving to a different club. Stay here, you will play. And probably Garcia has the task to find a position for Raspadori in this team. A bit like Elmas, it's not really clear what's his best position, particularly inside of this 4-3-3. Obviously, if we change formation, then Raspadori is a clear second striker. So, yeah, I think that comes from above, that Raspadori has to play. Obviously, with Kvara being out, he might get a chance, I think, on the left wing. Now, let's go to some of the comments before I continue with Garcia's press conference. Azzurino says, watching from Hamburg, currently lunch break. There we go, man. Both of us on a lunch break. Sufuskova says, ciao Dom, popping in from south of France on holiday. Nice. Really hyped for the new season, especially hyped for Gabri Veiga. Yeah, Gabri Veiga is another topic that we need to talk about. Marcello Bruno says, ciao Dom, love your work and passion. Watching from Adelaide, Australia. Forza Napoli sempre, YU. That's a pretty far place, and man, this must be one of the few times that you get to watch this live, because we usually do live streams late at night, but I guess everybody in Asia and Australia is going to be quite happy with this. Tariq says, hey Dom, finally Veiga is coming. Yeah guys, it's super close to being official. I mean, if Veiga gets any closer, he's going to appear on this live stream, all right? Like, I've counted the amount of times Fabrizio Romano said he's getting closer, and if every time he says that it's equal to one step, he should be here right now in my room, because yeah, I mean, we've been talking about it for a month now. Every day we get closer and closer. It's gonna happen, okay? It's gonna happen, and yeah, we just have to wait. I think either between today and tomorrow for the announcement. Maybe on Sunday or Monday, worst case scenario, but I think definitely it's happening. Cody Grench says, hi, I'm a new subscriber and have started watching your videos recently and really enjoy how in-depth you talk about Napoli. I'm also from Malta, so it's nice to have an English-speaking Napoli YouTuber. Welcome to the channel, Cody. Thanks for your comment. Sometimes I forget that there's also new people to the channel, so I put things for granted that everybody knows how things work. I'm sure you'll get the hang of it very soon, but yeah, make sure you stick around Saturday after the game. We go live after every single game. We talk about Napoli, the analysis of the game, player ratings, which, guys, brings me to, before we get back to Garcia, all right, I just want to plug this new little game that I have, which is the Frosinone Napoli match predictor. It's going to be the case for every match, right? You go, and let me interact with this bad boy. You go and on this website, and basically what you do is you read the instructions. 1 point for every correct answer, 0 points if you leave something blank, and -1 if you get a wrong answer. Already a few of you have signed up, so thank you for that. Monthly winner, by the way, if you predict better than anybody else on this channel for the month, you can get the chance to do a video with me. We can talk about whatever topic you want, whether that's, well, it has to be Napoli related, but you choose the topic, and the season winner, there's a prize, right? But for me to gather the funds for this prize, and for me to hopefully put this game into a better platform instead of Google Forms, I want to start raising a bit of money, so there is a bit of a contribution involved here. But basically it's super simple, right? You just pick, okay, Napoli, I think they're going to score 3 goals, the opposition 2, I mean, that's never going to happen, but for example, goal scorer Osimhen, if I think he's going to score twice, just put it once, you don't need to put it twice. If you think it's just Osimhen and that's it, then leave the rest blank. If you want to keep adding things, keep adding it. It's the same for assists and yellow card, and then at the end you've got pick your man of the match and your flop of the match, which is basically the guys that I will rate more highly, right? So at the end of every game, I have the player ratings. I'm going to give out a man of the match and flop of the match award. If you guessed right before the game, then you basically win a point there, right? And probably the day after each game, I'm going to be uploading the results. So I think that's going to be a fun little game to play. Make sure you guys sign up. Link is in the description. Anyways, back to Garcia and what he said. So he's talked about Kvaratskhelia being out. Then they asked him about Gabri Veiga. And I mean, guys, Gabri Veiga, we all want Gabri Veiga to come, right? I mean, he is going to be the signing of the Serie A for sure once he gets here. There is no doubt about that. But Garcia says, listen, he is not one of our players, and I'm only going to speak about one of my players. And plus, this is not a transfer market show, this is a press conference. So don't ask me about other players. Then he says, they asked him, is there something that you found surprising with one of the players or with some of the players that maybe you noticed while training them that you didn't notice while they were on TV? And he said, look, first and foremost, not everybody, but the majority of them, what I realized is that they're great human beings. That's something that maybe doesn't come across, but they are great human beings, very professional, and those are the key ingredients to winning a Scudetto, right? You need to be a group, you need to be cohesive, you need to play for each other, sacrifice yourself for each other. When you see that someone is having trouble, you go and cover for him. And he says that that's exactly what he found, and now he can see why Napoli has won the Scudetto. Another question was, are we going to see any new things from you? And he said, of course, I've got my own ideas that I want to introduce to the team. The players did very good last year, but they cannot think that there is zero room for improvement and that there's only one way to do things. They need to have an open mind because you can always improve. And he stresses the fact that he is worried that some players, or that the collective of players, is a bit in their comfort zone ever since winning the Scudetto, right? Which means that he's worried that they feel that they've already proven themselves, that they don't need to try harder, that they're the best and other teams are nowhere near them. And that worries Garcia a lot. And he says, look, I'm a new coach. If you want to start in this team, you have to prove it from scratch that you are able to be in this team. And the fact that people like Nathan, the fact that people like Cajuste, the fact that people like Gabri Veiga might come in, that's really positive, because you need people that are motivated and that want to prove themselves and that want to win, because these guys haven't won before. And he says that's super important to have. And I think that's key. I think if you look, for example, at the best team in Europe right now, right? If you guys take a look at Manchester City, the great thing about Manchester City is that every year they change, right? And there's the famous Pep Guardiola video where he's crying and he says, we cannot replace him. We cannot replace him. Speaking of Sergio Aguero, right? And then this is one of City's top goal scorers. And then they go and they buy Haaland and they win and they're even better than before, right? And I think, or if you take a look at what they did last season with João Cancelo, right? He was, in the eyes of most people, the best right back in Europe. And then they put him on loan to Bayern Munich. I'm sure something happened there with the team. But he was able and willing to change something, even though we're talking about some of the best players in the world in that team. Not only that, but guys like John Stones, center back, all of a sudden you see him towards the end of the season playing in midfield, right? And that holding midfield role. And he's trying all these new things. He starts playing three at the back. And this is Man City, guys. This is the best team in the world. And Guardiola doesn't say, there's no room for improvement. I'm just going to keep playing with these players and this football forever. No, he tries to find new ways to play, tries to push his own players to try out new positions. And in the end, he ended up finding probably a stronger setup than what he had before. And I think that's key for Napoli. We don't want to start from scratch, but definitely there is room for improvement. And Garcia, he said, look, I wanted to keep this team as close as possible to last year. So it's not like he's going to destroy everything of what we've done. But, I want to use that as a base and build my own ideas. Guys, there are 39 of you at this moment in time watching on your lunch breaks, or probably if you're in Europe, or at breakfast if you're in the States or whatever. But only half of you have smashed that like button. And I know that maybe you'll do that afterwards, but if you do it now, then Napoli is going to score more than 2 goals against Frosinone. If you do it afterwards, I don't know, it's going to be a tougher game. So smash that like button right now, as Marcello Bruno is saying. Pranav Jain says, there's no point of keeping him if Veiga comes, and he is talking about Zielinski. We already have Elmas, and cashing out on Zielinski right now seems logical, as his value might drop if it isn't going to be a regular starter. Look, 30 million for Zielinski is a lot of money. At 29 years old, 1 year left of his contract. We've amortized him a long time ago because we bought him with Higuain money, right? This was a very long time ago. 15 million more or less for him. I think that if he's willing to reduce his salary by $1 million, $1.5 million down to 2.5 million, I think keep him. What's the problem? He's someone that really wants to stay at Napoli, so that's always useful, no? In a team where nowadays you get offers and people are leaving and just chasing the money. I think it's super important to have in the team people that actually want to stay, people that are in love with the club, in love with the city, people that have been here for a long time. Him and Mario Rui are the last guys since the Sarri era. I mean, these are the guys that when new people come in, these are the guys that have to be the kind of leaders to show people around, let them know what kind of atmosphere they're going to find in Naples, in the team. I think he's super important, right? And as long as his mind's in the right place, then I think you should keep him. I think also as a footballer, he's just a joy to watch, right? And I'm sure that if we want to be competitive in the Champions League, if we want to be competitive in the Coppa Italia, if we want to be competitive in the Serie A, then we need a big squad. And we need a squad where we don't just have a substitute, but we have a substitute of the same level as the starter. And they have to be pushing each other at all times so that we get the best out of both of them, right? So yeah, I mean, in every good team you have these situations. I don't see why for us it's a problem. And as I said, I don't think Elmas necessarily is in. I think it's more about Veiga and Zielinski being in the same position, but Elmas, I personally like to see him on the right wing, and maybe that's not where Garcia likes to see him. But I mean, I already made a video about it a few days ago. I see him a right winger. I think he provides very good cover tracing back. He's very good at crossing the ball, very direct going forward. He's not the paciest guy, but he's got skills. I don't know. I really like Elmas, and I think he had his best moments on the right wing for us. Anyways, let's go to more things that Spalletti says, and then I'll go back to some of the comments. So Spalletti also said, one second, guys. Spalletti also, oh, by the way, thanks for smashing the like button. I see those numbers go up. That gives me motivation. So then they ask stupid questions sometimes, like, what does Garcia ask for Garcia? Like, what do you ask for yourself? Man, come on. Obviously, to always do well. And what else? They ask him about the defense, and he says, look, obviously we're going to have a very high line, but I also want the team to be very chameleontic, like a chameleon, because it will have to adapt based on the opposition. And he says, look, at times you also do want the other team to come at you. You don't always want to be pushing and pressing the team and always, because sometimes you want the other team to come forward and to bring people forward, and you want to soak the pressure, because then you've got fast guys like Osimhen, like Kvara, like potentially Politano or Lozano, that these guys can break and can hit you on the counterattack. And I think that's something that we didn't really utilize much last season, the fact that we do have good counterattacking players. So I think that in the games where you're playing against teams like Frosinone that are going to just be at the back, if you're finding it hard to break them down and it's the second half, you know what, just give them the ball for a bit. Absorb the pressure, soak it up, and then hit them on the counter instead of always trying to break down their block. That's how I would play. Obviously, it's very risky giving the other people the ball. But then again, we are talking about Frosinone, so we're not giving the ball to Man City, right? So maybe that's how I would play. Right, so that is Garcia, guys. I have a bit of a predicted formation for tomorrow, because he did say that Raspadori is playing. So I assume he's going to take the spot of Kvara on the left, where we're going to play Raspadori, Osimhen, and then Politano on the right. Otherwise, Raspadori could switch with Elmas, and Elmas plays on the left wing, and Raspadori goes into the midfield. Potentially, Raspadori plays on the right instead of Politano, Elmas on the left, and Cajuste in midfield making his debut. There's obviously different options. I think they're all valid options. I think they're all good. I think this team, you could change 3 or 4 different players here and you should still be able to beat Frosinone quite comfortably. As I said before, it's probably the worst team in the Serie A. They haven't done a great mercato to improve their squad. They are not at the same level as a team like Cagliari, who has gone up, who has an experienced coach in Ranieri, who is used to the Serie A, has way more experience in Serie A. Frosinone just feels like, I don't know, I feel like they're going to struggle this year. But I will be making, by the way, my predictions on top 4, who is going to win, who's going to go down, and all that. I will make it, but at the end of August. I want to wait for the mercato to be fully, not fully maybe, but you know, I want it to be 95% over, and we're not there yet. There's still a lot that's happening, and I mean probably a lot will still happen until the very end of the mercato. Right. So let's talk a little bit about Veiga, and then we go to Spalletti. Okay. So Gabri Veiga, guys, as I said before, I think he's a great player, and it would be the best signing of the Serie A for sure this summer, because in the end of the day, it would be the only signing where you're actually spending a lot of money. Because guys, Inter are so screwed right now, man. They are they went for Quadrado, who's 2 million years old, on free. They can't replace Lukaku with any decent striker, so they bought in Arnautovic. Man, like, this is a ridiculous transfer market. And other guys like that they bought, I mean, I don't think they're guys that will have that much of an impact. Same thing for Milan, for Juve. The guys that they brought, they all have a history of injury problems, or they weren't playing in their team, and maybe they had hype a few years ago, like a Pulisic had hype a few years ago, but it never really materialized. So those clubs are hoping that some of their players are going to turn it around, that they're going to have a good season, be fit, go back to their glory days, which could happen, right? Because we know that the Serie A is a league where, at the end of the day, even a guy like Giroud, who is 35, makes a difference, right? So I'm not saying that they won't have an impact, but it's so different from, I hope you have an impact, to Gabri Veiga for sure is going to have an impact. And I don't want to jinx it, but I mean, this guy is 21. He literally captained his team last weekend when he came on. He obviously didn't start because you don't want to... I mean, Celta Vigo want to sell him. They want the money. They need the money. And they're even going to settle for less than the release clause. But at the end of the day, like, he still managed to walk into the field at 21 years old, captained it, scored a bucket load of goals per minute or per 90 minutes for his age. I just think that he's the real deal, no? And will he maybe need some time to settle in? Yeah, of course, that goes without saying. Or maybe he's like a Kvara that just comes in and wreaks havoc from the first day. But I just think he's one of those signings that it's a statement of intent from Napoli if they get him. Especially then if later on we go and we grab Coupe Miners for another 30 million. I mean, guys, we are the only club that's actually spending in Italy. Like 30 million for Raspadori, 20 million for Simeone, 30 million for Gabri Veiga. Like, this is kind of like us saying, we've got money, you guys don't, we're gonna buy players, we're not gonna do these free deals. You know, it's quite good. I do worry about whether or not Nathan... See, with Gabri Veiga, it's like, even if he doesn't perform super well on the first year, I mean, he'll perform well. Even if he doesn't perform super well, I'm confident that Zielinski or Elmas can just pick up any slack, right? With the problem I have with Nathan is that because it's such a wild card. I mean, I know I made a video where I said he's good, and he is good, but I don't want people to get confused and think that he's the next Thiago Silva. Like, I never said that. I never said he was amazing. I said he's a good player. Like, we didn't go and buy some random kid. We bought a good kid. But because he's not played in Europe before, and because he's not got, I think, the ceiling that someone like Gabri Veiga has, I wonder in these next 3 months, for example, while he's still adapting, what happens in defense if Juan Jesus needs a bit of a break, if someone gets injured, then we're a bit less covered there, I think, and that's a position where I'm more worried about. But I don't know what you guys think. Lawrence Moore says, don't you think it's kind of worrying that Nathan won't start in his first game when he's meant to be the replacement of Kim? At the end, no, because he's meant to be the long-term replacement of Kim. Like, over the course of 50 games this season, I don't think who you play in the first 1 or 2 games really matters. I would be worried if we are at game 4 or 5 and he still hasn't started or still hasn't even made a debut. But these things kind of take time, right? Like with Rahman, especially in center back, it's a very delicate position because if you make one mistake, it's usually a very big one, right? And we saw with Rahmani when he first came on, we bought him from Verona. We waited 6 months for him to even debut for Napoli. And when he debuted, he made a back pass that was a mistake, and Udinese scored, and we basically, can't remember if we lost the game or nearly lost the game because of that, right? That can happen. And yeah, in the end, it took Rahmani 6 months and a bad debut, and maybe another few games where he played badly, but gradually he became like a very solid center back, right? And I think it's a position that just takes time, so I wouldn't worry that he's not starting. I would worry maybe later on in the year, if, let's say in Christmas. If at Christmas we still don't see signs of life, then I would be worried, and then at that point Napoli would have to buy somebody in the winter transfer market. Right, guys, we haven't got much time. Remember, I'm on my lunch break, so let's go through the Spalletti case, right? I think this is a very interesting one, and maybe not everybody is up to speed with what's happening. And this is a case that we don't just talk about it because he's our ex-coach. We talk about it because Napoli is directly involved in this. So just to recap about the situation, about what happened, right? Spalletti and De Laurentiis, after we won the Scudetto, had a conversation, and Spalletti told him that I don't want to keep playing, or I don't want to keep coaching Napoli, okay? Napoli, for whatever reason, right? He's tired, he doesn't think we can improve, whatever the case may be. And Napoli at that point had a clause in the contract where they could trigger an extra year for Spalletti, his 3rd year. And they triggered it without really consulting him. I mean, Spalletti didn't want to, and Napoli still triggered it. So you could say, yeah, that's kind of an unfair move by Napoli. But in the end of the day, it was to make sure that in case something goes wrong, that we actually have Spalletti, booked for next season. Spalletti says, no, look, I really don't want to train. And De Laurentiis is like, fine, have it your way. But because I now have to take the risk, because we signed a contract where I could have you for a 3rd season and you don't want this, now me, De Laurentiis, I have to take on the risk to find a new coach. And not only is that going to ruin our chances for winning the title again, because obviously you're changing stuff around. Things might not work out with a new coach, but it's labor intensive. I have to go and actually do stuff. I have to find people, interview them. I have to set things up with the lawyers. I have to set up a team around this new manager. There's a lot of costs involved in this. So because of all these things that you're costing me, I'm gonna put a clause in this deal that we're striking that yes, you can leave, but only if you take a sabbatical. Because what I don't want to see is that you tell me, hey, I'm too tired to coach, please let me leave, and then you go off and you train some other team. Like, no, excuse me, but you have a contract to train us if you really want to train somebody. So they signed this deal. Spalletti signed this deal willingly. No one forced him into it. Maybe you could say it's not what he wanted at that moment, but it goes back to the first deal he signed 3 years ago or 2 years ago when he allowed Napoli the option to do an extra year on his contract. So Napoli has every right to strike a deal like that if both parties agree to it. And now there's the situation that if he wants to coach Italy, which it seems like he does, that someone has to pay this 3 million. This actually has to come directly from Spalletti. So it would have to be that obviously Spalletti pays Napoli and the Federazione Italiana, the Italian Federation, pays Spalletti the reimbursement for this. But here's the thing, guys. I mean, if Spalletti does go and trains Italy, I do want Napoli to go for this money, right? 100%. Because it's in the contract. And De Laurentiis says, look, it's not about the 3 million. I don't care about 3 million euros. I'm not cheap like that. What I do care is that contracts get respected, because we can't keep living in a world where contracts are not respected. It's going to be utter chaos. That's fine if Spalletti actually does go to Italy. On the other hand, actually, if I could choose what's the best outcome out of all of this, I would say that Spalletti doesn't go and trains Italy. Why? Because I don't want the Federazione Italiana to pay Napoli any money, because today they're going to be paying us 3 million. But what happens? Next year or in 2 years, the same thing happens with another club, and maybe Juventus puts a 10 million release clause on their coach. And then what? Do you really want the Italian Federation to pay Juventus 10 million? Right? Like, how much is this 3 million today going to cost us in the future? I don't want that to happen, and it just sets a really bad precedent where the federation is giving money to clubs, and that's not really fair, because the federation takes money from all the clubs in the Serie A, and it's not fair that you take money from everybody and then you just put it into the pocket of one of them. So yeah, I mean, obviously in the short term, an extra 3 million would be super nice, and Spalletti would do really well as an Italian national team coach, and obviously that would be great for everybody that's Italian. But I just worry about what happens in the long term and what kind of worms we might be opening. And yeah, I just hope that overall this whole situation doesn't affect us negatively this year. Obviously, the Italian Federation has a lot of power, a lot of political power, and you know, I just don't want us to be penalized as a club in terms of bad refereeing decisions and all that, because we took this position against them, because we're not just allowing them to break the contract without paying anything. So I really hope that doesn't happen. But guys, let me know what you guys think in the comments, and yeah, I mean, I'm happy to hear other opinions, but yeah, that's what I think about it. Sinistro 2x, it says, in the case we got Coupe Miners as well, what would your preferred midfield lineup look like? I put it in the video that I published 2 days ago, but my preferred midfield at that point would probably be Coupe Miner, Lobotka, and Anguissa. But man, it's the fact that we wouldn't have an attacking midfielder like Zielinski or Veiga would be a bit of a problem, no? I think it would depend on which team you play against. I think if you play against a team like, I don't know, like a Man City, some team that's like really going to attack you in the Champions League, then yeah, I would play Coupe Miner, Lobotka, and Anguissa. But if you play against a team that you need to break down yourself, like a Frosinone, then I would put Zielinski instead, right? So I think it really depends on the opposition. And Cody asks, what do you think of the future of Ostigard with us this season? I mean, he has potential, but I'm a bit worried some of the decision making he does. I like him and wish more for him. Yeah, I think the problem with Ostigard is that it's a bit of that, his decision making. I think he's got everything to be a good defender in terms of his technical abilities, but maybe it's more a matter of being concentrated in the game, right? We saw how important concentration is. I think Kim taught us that this past season, where I think that's the most important thing for defenders, just not to make a mistake. You know, you don't really need defenders to do something crazy. You just want them not to make a mistake. And yeah, I think he's got to improve on that. But I also think that it's hard for a player to show his worth without playing consistently. And when you then play once every 15 games, it's easy to feel a bit nervous or to be out of rhythm, and that causes you to make more mistakes, right? So I would really like to see Ostigard get a run of games, maybe 5 in a row, and then really judge him at the end of that run of games, right? At the 4th, the 5th game, and see, okay, this is his level at the moment, and let's evaluate that. But I think when he just comes on once in a while, I think it's just very hard to judge a defender at that point. Anyways, guys, I have to head back to work because yeah, I'm doing this summer internship. I've actually got a week left, so yeah, and then back to finishing off the masters. But I gotta finish this internship, and you know, I gotta make sure that I'm connected on Teams again, right? So yeah, unfortunately, guys, we have to end this stream, but it's been good fun, and we will talk more tomorrow after the game. Remember, live on Napoli Talk. Remember to sign up to the match predictor, guys, please. It's going to be super fun. A lot of you have already signed up, so guys, make sure you do that. And guys, those that signed up, those that have played but haven't made the contribution, I'll allow it because maybe you didn't understand the instructions the first time, or I wasn't super clear. But really, from the second game of the season onwards, then I do want to start gathering the funds to make this a better platform, because then it's just more fun for everybody, right? So, I mean, everything just gets reinvested into Napoli Talk, which is at the end for me and for you guys. So I think that would be super cool. Anyways, that's all for this, and hope you guys have a good Friday, and see you tomorrow. And as always, Forza Napoli sempre. Ciao.